Sign the papers, Mingu. Chen Wei's voice was as smooth as polished jade, just as it had been 3 years ago when he topped the Imperial examinations and paraded through the streets on horseback, pausing beneath my window to ask my name with that charming smile. Only now that velvet tone carried an edge of ice I couldn't quite understand. On the table before him lay divorce papers, ink still wet, each character a dagger to my heart. 7 grounds for divorce were listed, but only 2 words mattered. Lin Mingu is jealous and barren. I stared at that damning word. Barren. Feeling bile rise in my throat. 3 years of marriage. 3 years during which I'd managed his household, transformed my family's vast fortune into stepping stones for his meteoric rise, cultivated connections that elevated him from a penniless scholar to the Empress favorite. And for what? To be branded barren after only 3 years. Wei, we've only been married 3 years, I said, my voice rough as sandpaper. 3 years is quite enough to know, snapped my mother-in-law, her pinched face twisted with disgust. The Chen family line cannot end with some barren hen. Beside her, Chen Wei's childhood sweetheart, Yun Mai, delicately stroked her belly, the picture of bashful contrition. Sister-in-law, please don't blame cousin. It's entirely my fault for not controlling my feelings. I never expected this child to come at such an inconvenient time. Inconvenient indeed. The charade was crystal clear. This wasn't divorce. It was eviction to make room for his pregnant mistress. Seeing my hesitation, Chen Wei's patience finally snapped. Mingu, don't make this uglier than necessary. The Chen family cannot remain childless, and I won't see my suffer disgrace. He turned to Yun Mai with nauseating tenderness. Don't worry, darling. You'll be properly compensated, Mingu. That little estate south of the city is yours. Compensated? With the most patronizing tone imaginable, he was offering me a pittance from my own dowry. A single property from the 10-mile bridal procession, the gold and silver, the shops scattered across the capital that had made his success possible. And if I refused to sign? I met his eyes for the first time with genuine coldness. He blinked, clearly unprepared for this steely version of his usually compliant wife. Yun Mai immediately whimpered. Sister-in-law, why make things difficult for cousin? Shut your mouth, I snapped. When did mistresses get speaking rights in family discussions? She flinched back into Chen Wei's arms like a frightened rabbit. Chen Wei seized my wrist and forced the brush into my hand. Lin Mingu, my patience has limits. Don't push me. The grip was painful, but my heart had long since gone numb. Looking at him, at her, at my gloating mother-in-law, I realized these 3 years had been nothing but an elaborate farce. Then, cutting through the tension like a cavalry charge, came the thunderous sound of marching boots. A servant tumbled through the door, voice shaking with terror. Madam, sir, Prince Han's retinue has stopped at our gates. Prince Han. The room collectively recoiled in shock. That Prince Han, the legendary general who'd spent years defending the northern frontier, ruthless in battle, supposedly temperamental as a viper, and rumored to be unable to father children due to war injuries. What business could he possibly have with the Chen family? Chen Weii released my wrist, confusion replacing arrogance on his face. Before anyone could react, a commanding figure stepped through the doorway, backlit like an avenging angel. He wore midnight black robes embroidered with golden dragons. His face was aristocratically handsome but cold as winter marble. Those eyes, dark as ancient pools, carried the weight of a man who'd seen too much death. Prince Han himself. His gaze swept the room before settling on me, then on the damning divorce papers. Chen Weii scrambled to bow. Your Highness, this humble official had no idea. The prince didn't even glance his way, walking directly toward me instead. Each step seemed to lower the room's temperature, making everyone hold their breath. He stopped before me, his imposing frame casting me in shadow. When he looked down, those fathomless eyes held no trace of the contempt I'd grown accustomed to. They claim you cannot bear children. His voice was velvet over steel. Humiliation burned my cheeks. I bit my lip and nodded. As it happens, I am likewise unable to sire heirs. I stared at him, bewildered. Then, in front of Chen Weii, Yun Mai, and every scandalized servant, This prince who commanded armies and struck fear into enemy hearts made the most outrageous proposition imaginable. You are barren. I am sterile. A perfect match. Lin Mingu, marry into my household. I shall shield you from all storms. What say you? Time itself seemed suspended. Chen Weii went white as parchment, mouth agape like a landed fish. Yun Mai's tear-stained face froze in a mixture of jealousy and disbelief, her delicate features twisting into something almost grotesque. My mother-in-law's eyes rolled back so far I thought she might faint on the spot. But I looked at Prince Han, this man speaking with casual indifference about the most shocking proposal in living memory, and felt something like lightning course through me. He was offering me escape, dignity, revenge, all wrapped in royal purple. Why on earth would I refuse? Seeing Chen Wei's gobsmacked expression filled me with savage joy. Yes. The word came out steady, decisive, as if I'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Prince Han's mouth twitched, barely perceptible, but definitely amused. He turned to Chen Weii with arctic disdain. Master Chen, I trust those divorce papers are properly executed. I'm rather eager to escort my future princess home. Chen Weii trembled like a plucked harp string, the reality crashing down. He stared at me with a complex mixture of shock, resentment, and the fury of a man whose possession has been publicly claimed by someone infinitely more powerful. Your Highness, this is merely a domestic matter. Not any longer. Prince Han's interruption carried the weight of absolute authority. From the moment she agreed, she became a member of my household. Surely, Master Chen wouldn't presume to detain someone under my protection. The implied threat hung heavy as a headsman's axe. Chen Wei's face cycled through several shades of mortification before he clenched his jaw and, under the witness of his entire household, signed his name to the divorce papers with violent strokes. I took the document without a second glance and walked to the nearest candle. The flame licked eagerly at the paper, reducing it and my laughable 3-year marriage to ashen memory. Shall we? Prince Han inquired mildly. I straightened my spine and followed him, step by measured step, out of that suffocating prison. I didn't spare Chen Weii so much as a backward glance. Behind us, Yun Mai's sobs mingled with my mother-in-law's shrill accusations, but it was all white noise now. None of it concerned me anymore. Prince Han's residence was even more austere than I'd expected. The grounds were vast but carried an air of gentle neglect. With the master constantly campaigning, the servants had grown lazy, and the household accounts were in absolute shambles. That evening, we conducted what could charitably be called a business negotiation across his study table. I require a wife to silence the palace gossips, he stated matter-of-factly. You need sanctuary and independence from the Chen family. It's mutually beneficial. Aren't you concerned about the scandal? Taking a barren cast-off as your princess? He raised an eyebrow. Given my own limitations, I'd hardly be one to cast stones. Besides, my reputation can hardly be damaged by one more amusing rumor. I had to admire his composure. This war god prince was definitely not playing by conventional rules. Very well, I agreed. But I have conditions. I'll manage your household affairs and straighten out these appalling accounts. In exchange, you guarantee my freedom to leave whenever I choose, plus absolute protection while I'm here. I paused meaningfully. I'm not seeking lifelong luxury, just breathing room to rebuild my strength. Those penetrating eyes studied me as if reading my very soul. Acceptable. With our arrangement sealed, I wasted no time getting to work. The next morning, I requested the household seals and ledgers from Steward Fu, whose deferential manner couldn't quite mask his obvious disdain for this disgraced newcomer presuming to meddle in palace affairs. Your Highness, these accounts are frightfully complex. Perhaps this old servant should continue. I cut him off, sliding an expense ledger under his nose. Last month, your purchasing department overpaid by 300 taels for coal. Yet the warehouse received water-damaged inferior goods. The kitchen expenses consistently run 30% above market rate. Care to explain whether this represents incompetence or embezzlement? His obsequious smile shattered instantly, sweat beading his forehead. He clearly hadn't expected the new mistress to master 3 years of creative accounting in a single night. I said nothing more, simply held his gaze steadily. Within 3 days, I'd transformed the entire household. Redundant staff were dismissed, purchasing authority centralized under my control, and new supply contracts negotiated with the capital's major merchants at rock-bottom prices. I reactivated several dormant properties, leasing them at profitable rates. Through judicious cost-cutting and revenue optimization, the palace accounts showed a surplus within a fortnight. The servants' expressions shifted from contempt to genuine respect, while Steward Fu became positively servile in his eagerness to accommodate my every directive. I'd claimed my place in this cold palace through pure competence. Meanwhile, the capital buzzed with gossip. Everyone declared Prince Han had gone completely mad, spurning the city's most eligible ladies for a barren reject. Chen Weii sent several messages requesting private meetings to inquire after my well-being. I had Steward Fu deliver a forward response. The princess is busy. News reached me that Chen Weii and Yun Mai's wedding was scheduled for the following month. The entire city praised scholar Chen's magnanimous heart, overlooking his bride's humble origins for true love, especially with a child on the way. A grand celebration was planned to demonstrate his devotion. Sitting in my warm study, listening to Steward Fu's intelligence reports, I felt only sardonic amusement. Your Highness, the Chen family has sent representatives demanding return of your former dowry properties, he reported delicately, clearly worried about reopening old wounds. I set down my account books and lifted my teacup thoughtfully. How presumptuous of them. They claim those assets rightfully belong to the Chen family now that you're no longer affiliated. I actually laughed at that. Father hadn't become the capital's premier merchant by accident. I'd inherited his commercial instincts along with his fortune. When I'd married into the Chen family with my spectacular dowry procession, those shops and estates might have been registered under Chen family names, but father's paranoid foresight had ensured all core contracts and management appointments bore my signature alone. Did Chen Weii really imagine my departure left him master of my assets? Did he think his classical education could magically transform into hard currency without my business acumen? How charmingly naive. Inform them, I said carefully, that if they want those contracts, Master Chen can collect them personally. Also, please visit the Silk Pavilion and have Manager Zhong bring his accounts and staff to see me immediately. Steward Fu looked puzzled but complied without question. Chen Weii never came. His pride wouldn't permit it. Instead, he sent my former mother-in-law to stage a public scene outside the palace gates, shrieking about my supposed ingratitude and theft of Chen family property. I didn't even bother appearing, simply having Steward Fu deliver my message. Property belongs to whoever's name appears on the deeds. Further disturbances will result in formal complaints about harassing a royal household. The old woman slunk away, properly chastened. The Chen family soon discovered their predicament. Their primary income source, the Silk Pavilion textile shop, collapsed overnight when Manager Zhong and his entire experienced staff departed. Their longtime customers followed the expertise, leaving incompetent replacements to fumble with basic inventory. Business plummeted catastrophically. But that was merely the opening salvo. 3 days later, directly opposite the struggling Silk Pavilion, a magnificent new establishment called Jade Cloud Workshop opened with great fanfare, managed by none other than Zhong himself. The grand opening featured an exclusive new fabric called Moonlight Silk, with lustrous colors and silk so fine it seemed to flow like liquid starlight. This was my secret weapon, proprietary dye formulations I'd guarded for years. Every lady of quality in the capital went absolutely mad for it. Jade Cloud Workshop couldn't handle the demand, while the Silk Pavilion sat empty as a tomb. And that was just the beginning. Over the following fortnight, I leveraged my original dowry properties to rapidly integrate supply chains and business networks. Grain merchants, tea houses, pawn shops, one after another, new enterprises emerged with surgical precision to target every Chen family revenue stream. I knew their business models intimately, understood every vulnerability. My counterattack hit them where it hurt most. The Chen family's prosperity had always been built on my dowry's foundation, smoke and mirrors disguising their fundamental weakness. Now I was pulling out the support beams, watching their gilded facade crumble into rubble. Chen Wei's wedding expenses became the final straw. Desperate to maintain face, he borrowed extensively, robbing Peter to pay Paul in an increasingly frantic shell game. Yun Mai had grown accustomed to the comfortable lifestyle Chen Weii had promised. Watching household luxuries disappear one by one, her sweet temperament curdled into constant complaints and recriminations. Finally, one evening, Chen Weii came calling. Standing at the palace side gate, he looked positively haggard. Dark circles under bloodshot eyes, the confident scholar replaced by a desperate man facing ruin. A servant interrupted my chess game with Prince Han. "The lady declines the meeting," I said without looking up from the board. "He claims urgent business regarding the Moonlight Silk formula," the servant added reluctantly. I glanced up to find Prince Han watching me with those inscrutable dark eyes. He said nothing, simply waited for my decision. Curiosity getting the better of me, I rose to meet my former husband. Mingu. His face lit up with pathetic hope. "Finally. Please. Can we just talk? Name your price for the formula. Anything you want." Looking at his desperate expression, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, just empty indifference. "Master Chen, you're mistaken," I replied coolly. "I'm committed to a chess game with His Highness. As for the formula, that's Lin family intellectual property. It has nothing whatsoever to do with you." I shut the door without another word, leaving him standing in the growing darkness. His anguished cry echoed briefly before silence returned. Back at the chessboard, Prince Han handed me a white stone. "Your move." Days passed in productive routine. Jade Cloud Workshop's success grew exponentially while Chen family enterprises continued their death spiral. Steward Fu reported that Yun Mai and my former mother-in-law had engaged in several bitter arguments over reduced household allowances, leaving Chen Weii caught in the middle and increasingly frazzled. Honestly, the whole soap opera felt like watching someone else's life through a window. Mildly entertaining, but ultimately irrelevant. I threw myself into both commercial operations and adapting to palace life. Prince Han was an intriguing enigma. Though taciturn and usually buried in military correspondence, he demonstrated thoughtful attention to my preferences. My favorite pastries would mysteriously appear, or the room would be scented with incense I particularly enjoyed. We were like two familiar strangers sharing space with mutual respect but careful boundaries, an oddly comfortable arrangement. Recently, though, I'd been experiencing unusual fatigue, requiring afternoon naps that stretched for hours. My appetite had grown peculiar too, but I attributed everything to overwork and stress. Then one afternoon, while reviewing accounts, the world suddenly tilted sideways. Black spots danced across my vision as I nearly tumbled from my chair. Prince Han appeared as if from nowhere, catching me with reflexes honed by years of combat. "You look dreadful," he observed, automatically checking my pulse. His calloused fingers, roughened by sword hilts, were surprisingly gentle. "Just tired," I protested weakly. "I'll rest and be fine." But his frown deepened rather than relaxed. "Steward Fu, summon Imperial physician Wang immediately." "Your Highness, that's completely unnecessary," I objected. "I know my own body. This is nothing serious enough to warrant." I said summon him. The quiet authority in his voice brooked no argument. Imperial physician Wang was a palace veteran who arrived with suspicious alacrity. After taking my pulse, his bushy eyebrows performed an elaborate dance of surprise, confusion, and finally stunned incredulity. He released my wrist and promptly dropped to his knees before Prince Han, voice trembling with excitement. "Congratulations, Your Highness. 10,000 felicitations. This isn't illness at all. The princess carries new life." My mind went completely blank. Pregnant. Impossible. For years, physicians had confirmed my barren condition. Cold womb, weak constitution, destined for childlessness. "What did you say?" Even Prince Han's voice wavered slightly. "Absolutely certain, Your Highness. From the pulse patterns, Her Highness is perfectly healthy with child, approximately 3 months along. Moreover," he paused dramatically, "the pulse suggests exceptional vitality. These are twins." Twins? I felt completely idiotic, unconsciously placing my hand over my still flat stomach. 2 little lives were already growing inside me. The supposed infertility had been a complete fabrication from start to finish. I looked at Prince Han, whose face displayed emotions I'd never seen before. Those ancient pool eyes showed first shock mirroring my own, then confusion, and finally an irrepressible joy that seemed to illuminate his entire being. He smiled, not his usual subtle lip curve, but a genuine radiant expression of pure delight. He started to reach for me, then caught himself mid-gesture, as if afraid he might damage something infinitely precious. He began pacing with barely contained excitement. Twins. Twins. Excellent. His usual eloquence had completely deserted him. He sounded like a struck schoolboy. The entire palace erupted in celebration. Steward Fu wept with joy while servants ran about spreading the miraculous news. Meanwhile, I remained in stunned amazement at the cosmic joke. I, the woman divorced for barrenness, was pregnant with twins just 3 months after leaving the Chen household. The irony was so perfect it was almost artistic. News travels faster than wildfire in the capital. Within hours, every street corner buzzed with gossip. Did you hear? Prince Han's wife is expecting twins. Which wife? Isn't that scholar Chen's barren ex-wife? Good Lord, the Chen family must be mortified. Mortified? I heard scholar Chen smashed his medicine bottles when he got the news and went absolutely berserk. Sitting by my window, listening to these fragments, I experienced a complex mixture of vindication, fury at years of deception, and growing wonder at the new life within me. At the Chen residence, Chen Weii burst into Yun Mai's chambers just as she was taking her pregnancy tonic. He snatched the bowl and hurled it against the wall, brown liquid splattering her silk robes. Explain this, he snarled, eyes wild with desperate rage. Why can Lin Mingu bear children? You said she was barren. Yun Mai cowered pathetically. Wei, I don't know. Truly, it was Mother. Mother arranged everything with that physician. He shoved her aside and stormed out to confront the real architect of the deception. Prince Han's initial euphoria quickly transformed into cold fury. He immediately dispatched his most trusted agents to locate the physician who diagnosed my supposed infertility. They returned with disturbing intelligence. Dr. Liu had mysteriously disappeared 2 months earlier, shortly after my divorce, claiming to return to his ancestral village. Investigation revealed he'd never gone home but had vanished after receiving substantial payment from the Chen family. Find him, Prince Han commanded with lethal simplicity. Alive or dead. Meanwhile, Chen Weii had cornered his mother and Yun Mai in the family shrine, demanding answers with the fury of a man whose entire world was collapsing. Tell me who planned this. Who destroyed my life, he screamed, looking genuinely unhinged. His mother, terrified by his appearance, tried deflecting blame. It was Mai's idea. She claimed to carry your child and said that Lin woman was too domineering, that she and the baby couldn't survive if you didn't divorce her. I only wanted to preserve the family line. Yun Mai collapsed in hysterical sobs. Cousin, that's not true. Aunt said Lin Mingyu's family background intimidated you, that she'd eventually bankrupt the Chen family. I only went along because I loved you so desperately. Like jackals fighting over carrion, they tore each other apart, revealing the elaborate conspiracy in all its sordid detail. The supposed infertility had been a complete sham. My bitter mother-in-law, resentful of my merchant family background and covetous of my dowry, had conspired with the equally jealous Yun Mai. They'd bribed a physician to provide false diagnosis, while Yun Mai had faked pregnancy with cotton padding. All to force my removal and seize my wealth. Listening to these revelations of calculated betrayal, Chen Weii felt reality disintegrate around him. His scholarly achievements, his romantic convictions, everything had been built on lies. These 2 women he'd trusted most had orchestrated his destruction while he personally discarded the one wife who could actually bear his children. In his rage, he kicked Yun Mai viciously. Poisonous creature. You've ruined me. Prince Han's investigators soon brought more disturbing news. They'd found Dr. Liu, or rather his corpse, dumped in a mass grave outside the city. Clearly, someone had silenced him permanently. More intriguingly, when they traced the source of his blood money, the silver hadn't come from the Chen family but from a money-changing house. The withdrawal was made by one of Yun Mai's distant cousins. How could an impoverished family afford physician bribing and murder for hire? During a routine health consultation, Imperial physician Wang made an offhand comment that proved illuminating. Curious thing. Recently, that new Mrs. Chen Weii something asked me about fertility treatments. When I examined her, I discovered she'd been taking red flower essence for years. Dreadful stuff for women. Causes permanent sterility. Rather ironic for someone desperate to conceive. Red flower essence. A powerful blood stimulant that renders women permanently infertile. Why would someone seeking pregnancy consume such poison unless someone else was controlling her reproductive capacity? When I shared this discovery with Prince Han, his expression darkened ominously. Yun Mai's cousin serves in the third prince's household. The third prince. Prince Han's primary political rival. Suddenly, the entire conspiracy crystallized with terrifying clarity. This wasn't mere domestic intrigue. It was a calculated assault on Prince Han himself. The third prince, knowing of Prince Han's supposed sterility, had planted Yun Mai as a potential spy bride. The plan was to help her orchestrate my removal, then position her to seduce Prince Han. To ensure her compliance, they'd used drugs to destroy her fertility, making her completely dependent on their support. Only they'd never anticipated Prince Han's unconventional solution, marrying the Barren cast-off instead of following their script. And they certainly hadn't expected me to be perfectly fertile. Layer upon layer of manipulation, each more chilling than the last. I felt ice-cold terror, realizing how close we'd come to their trap. Looking at Prince Han, I saw his eyes burning with protective fury. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "I'll let no one harm you or our children." In that moment, watching his determined profile, my battered heart felt the first warmth it had known in years. Chen Wei's collapse came swiftly after learning the scope of his manipulation. He'd been deceived, exploited, his career destroyed, his reputation ruined, all while betraying the one woman who genuinely loved him. And somehow he'd become an unwitting pawn in imperial power struggles far beyond his comprehension. Unable to process such devastating reality, he locked himself in his study for 3 days, refusing all food and drink. When he emerged, wild-eyed and unshaven, he looked like a man possessed. He stormed into Yun Mai's quarters, systematically destroying everything while screaming demands that she return his life. Yun Mai fled in terror while his mother wailed dramatically. The entire Chen household descended into absolute chaos. Finally, on a night of thunder and torrential rain, Chen Weii completely lost his mind. He burst from the house and ran through the storm to Prince Han's palace, throwing himself down in the mud outside the gates. Mingu, come out. I know I was wrong. Desperately, horribly wrong. I was napping when Steward Fu hurried in with barely concealed disgust. Your Highness, that Chen fellow is outside making a spectacle, begging to see you. Through my window, I could see him kneeling in the storm, repeatedly slamming his forehead against the ground until blood mixed with rainwater on his face. A grotesque display of self-destruction. Mingu, I was blind. Absolutely blind. Come back to me. I'll divorce that poisonous woman. Send mother away. We can start fresh. The children, surely they're mine. Tell me they're mine. He'd progressed beyond mere desperation into complete delusion, actually claiming my unborn children. I felt no pity watching his breakdown, only cold emptiness. Return to the past. We were separated by far more than Yun Mai's betrayal. 3 years of lies, multiple deaths, blood-soaked deception had created an unbridgeable chasm. Warm fabric settled around my shoulders as Prince Han appeared beside me, gently closing the window to block out the pathetic scene. It's late and windy, he said softly. Don't let such noise disturb you and the children. Looking at him, those deep eyes gentle in the candlelight, I felt my heart lifted by invisible hands, all coldness melting away. Steward Fu, Prince Han called without raising his voice. The princess needs her rest. Remove the disturbance. The wailing outside stopped abruptly, replaced by even more frantic screaming and gate pounding. Lin Mingu, you heartless woman, come out here. Han, you stole my wife. I'll destroy you. Prince Han's jaw tightened, murder flickering in his eyes, but he controlled himself. He wouldn't dignify a madman's ravings with violence. Palace guards eventually dragged Chen Weii away, but the scandal spread like plague through the capital. A top scholar groveling in the mud for his discarded ex-wife became the city's greatest entertainment. Imperial censors bombarded the throne with complaints. While the emperor had initially tolerated Chen Wei's domestic arrangements out of respect for his talents, harassing a princess carrying potential royal heirs crossed unacceptable lines. The next morning brought imperial judgment. Scholar Chen Weii displays moral corruption and behavioral degradation, threatening imperial offspring. His scholarly honors are hereby revoked, noble status stripped, permanent banishment from government service decreed. A single edict destroyed Chen Wei's last hope, transforming heaven's favorite into a complete nobody. I heard that when he received the decree, he neither wept nor protested, just laughed with increasing hysteria until he vomited blood and lost consciousness. And amid his ravings, Prince Han's agents detected repeated mentions of a certain name. The third prince. Chen Wei's spectacular downfall left Yunmai and her imperial patron in an extremely vulnerable position. The third prince probably never imagined his carefully planted chess piece would self-destruct so spectacularly before serving her intended purpose. My pregnancy had become Prince Han's strongest shield and the third prince's deadliest threat. A sterile war god posed manageable challenges. A fertile one with legitimate heirs could genuinely threaten the succession. He would definitely strike at us. We were counting on it. Since he wants me heirless, Prince Han observed while carefully peeling walnuts for me, perhaps we should show him what true despair looks like. Together, we crafted an intricate deception. I began publicly claiming severe pregnancy complications due to carrying twins, requiring complete bed rest and constant medical supervision. Prince Han played his part perfectly, cancelling all non-essential engagements to hover anxiously at the palace, projecting an image of paranoid protectiveness. He also strategically transferred most of our top security personnel to country estates, ostensibly preparing postnatal recovery facilities. The palace's defenses developed glaring vulnerabilities, all carefully calculated intelligence that filtered back to the third prince through various channels. Meanwhile, I promoted Jade Cloud Workshop's talented female manager to oversee all my commercial enterprises. I taught her modern business concepts, membership systems, advanced sales techniques, scarcity marketing, which she implemented with brilliant intuition, revolutionizing the capital's commercial landscape. These tactics delivered the final blow to remaining Chen family assets. Their mansion was sold. My former mother-in-law reduced from minister's mother to commoner practically overnight. More importantly, I had my manager use trade relationships to secretly gather evidence of the third prince's faction embezzling grain shipments and military supplies. Financial records prove guilt far more conclusively than witness testimony. The bait was prepared. Now we waited for our fish to bite. A month later, deep in the night, the palace lay silent except for occasional guard patrols. I lay awake, nerves taut, while Prince Han sat beside the bed, holding my hand. His calloused palm felt reassuringly solid. "They're coming," he whispered. Almost immediately, soft thudding sounds came from outside. Poison darts taking down sentries. Black figures ghosted over the walls with supernatural silence, moving directly toward my chambers. I gripped Prince Han's hand tighter, heart hammering. The assassins slipped through the window, moonlight gleaming on naked blades. Seeing me apparently asleep, their leader's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he raised his weapon toward my stomach. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the expected agony never came. Instead, metal rang against metal in a shower of sparks. Prince Han had materialized between us, somehow deflecting a killing blow with nothing but a fruit knife. "We've been expecting you," he said with arctic calm. The assassin tried retreating, but it was far too late. "Close the gates. Release the signal." At his command, the seemingly dark courtyard blazed with torches as dozens of palace guards emerged from concealment, crossbows trained on our trapped visitors. The would-be killers found themselves thoroughly outmaneuvered. After the inevitable slaughter, interrogation of the surviving leader led directly to the third prince. Though he'd barely begun crafting denials when Yunmai provided the final blow. Terrified by the failed assassination, she'd run to the magistrates with a full confession implicating both the third prince and, in a desperate bid for leniency, her former lover. She claimed Chen Weii had helped coordinate everything, hoping to frame a convenient madman for her own crimes. Listening to this news while sipping Prince Han's personally brewed calming tea, I felt only weary irony watching former lovers destroy each other for survival. The next morning's court session was charged with ominous tension. The third prince knelt in the center, looking utterly defeated, flanked by the babbling Chen Weii and sobbing Yun Mai. The emperor sat rigid with suppressed rage, his authority radiating like heat from a forge. As the primary victim, I entered with Prince Han's support, my first appearance in the dynasty's power center. Yet I felt no intimidation. Your Majesty, this subject has testimony to offer, I declared clearly. Proceed. Last night, assassins invaded Prince Han's palace, attempting to murder this subject and the imperial heirs within my womb. We captured them with material evidence. Their leader confessed the third prince as their employer. The third prince immediately began kowtowing frantically. Father Emperor, this son is innocent. My relationship with ninth brother has always been fraternal. How could I commit such treason? Someone is clearly framing me. Framing? I smiled coldly. Perhaps Yun Mai can explain who supplied the red flower essence that destroyed her fertility. Who taught her to manipulate this subject? How did an impoverished family afford physician bribes and subsequent murders? Yun Mai trembled violently, shooting terrified glances between me and the third prince while remaining speechless. Since Yun Mai seems reluctant to speak, I continued smoothly, producing account ledgers from my sleeve. Your Majesty might find these illuminating. My commercial enterprises recently discovered irregularities in grain transport contracts. The third prince's estates have been collaborating with smugglers, stealing official provisions and selling contraband salt. The sums involved are staggering. If attempted murder had angered the emperor, these accounts triggered absolute fury. Grain transport and salt monopolies were the dynasty's lifeblood. How dare the third prince contaminate such sacred trusts? The emperor snatched the ledgers, his face darkening with each page until he finally hurled them at his son's head. Traitorous beast, what defense do you offer? The evidence is overwhelming. The third prince collapsed completely, unable to form coherent denials. At this moment, the perpetually mad Chen Weii suddenly looked directly at me with momentary clarity, mumbling, I was wrong. So terribly wrong. His words reminded the emperor of another loose end. Scholar Chen, having been stripped of rank, what brings you before this throne alongside my son and Yun Mai? Before Chen Weii could answer, Yun Mai desperately grasped her final straw. Your Majesty, he orchestrated everything. He hated the princess and manipulated me into contacting the third prince for revenge. He masterminded it all. Lies. Chen Weii exploded with temporary lucidity. You're the poisonous one. You and mother deceived me completely. Watching this courtroom circus, the emperor's expression grew disgusted. He turned to an elderly minister. Grand Chancellor Liu, you were deputy examiner when Scholar Chen took the imperial examinations, were you not? The white-haired official stepped forward with a bow. Indeed, Your Majesty. I recall you once reported suspicious similarities between Chen's essays and those of a deceased friend. Chancellor Liu's face tightened. That is correct, though I lacked sufficient evidence to make formal accusations at the time. The emperor's voice dripped with disdain. Given current revelations, those weren't similarities. They were outright plagiarism. The court erupted in shock. Chen Weii looked thunderstruck as his most treasured achievement, his scholarly reputation, was publicly demolished. No, that's not, he mumbled incoherently, his remaining sanity finally snapping completely. Truth had become irrelevant. The emperor required resolution that would end this scandal while demonstrating imperial authority. Final judgment came swiftly. The third prince, for factional conspiracy and treasonous plotting, shall be stripped of royal status and confined to the imperial clan court for life. Yun Mai, for attempting to poison imperial heirs and framing innocent subjects, shall be exiled 3,000 li to serve as camp follower, her face branded with poisonous woman. As for Chen Weii, the emperor's eyes held profound contempt. Scholar Chen deceived the throne through plagiarism and demonstrates complete moral bankruptcy. We shall not merely revoke his honors but demonstrate the consequences of such fraud. His voice echoed through the great hall. Let Chen Weii be publicly caned 100 strokes at the Imperial Academy gates, that all scholars might witness the price of stolen glory. The Imperial Academy, his former place of greatest triumph, now destined to become his ultimate humiliation. The psychological cruelty was almost artistic. With verdicts rendered, I took Prince Han's arm and left that oppressive hall behind. Yun Mai's despairing wails and Chen Wei's mad laughter faded into irrelevance. Stepping into warm sunshine felt like emerging from a nightmare. Autumn turned to winter, and soon I faced labor. On a morning of heavy snow, I delivered healthy twin boys whose lusty cries seemed to chase away years of palace gloom. Prince Han held his sons with the trembling hands of a man more comfortable commanding armies than handling infants. His eyes brimmed with tears as he gazed at me with wonder. "Mingu, thank you," he whispered, pressing a burning kiss to my forehead. The emperor was ecstatic, showering us with gifts and formally elevating me to full princess rank. He named our sons Jian and Rui, bright and auspicious, investing tremendous hopes in the next generation. My life seemed to have achieved perfect fulfillment. From discarded wife to royal princess, beloved by my husband, blessed with healthy children, honored above all other women. But fate's wheel had not finished turning. Shortly after the boys' full-month celebration, urgent dispatches arrived from the northern frontier. The barbarian tribes, taking advantage of winter conditions, had broken their treaties and launched massive invasions. Border fortresses were falling, emergency reports flooded the capital, and the entire court was in crisis. Only Prince Han possessed the military genius and reputation necessary to stabilize the situation. Military orders were absolute. He had to depart immediately. On our final night together, he sat watching us sleep, memorizing every detail of his new family. "Mingu, I must go," he said quietly as dawn approached. I nodded, throat tight with unshed tears, but I wouldn't voice the selfish plea for him to stay. He was the dynasty's guardian. This was his destiny. "I've petitioned the emperor," he continued, gripping my hands with desperate intensity. "During my absence, you'll have complete authority over palace affairs. Moreover, I've requested permission for you to attend court sessions as an advisory observer." I stared at him in shock. Court attendance? That's completely unprecedented. Since time immemorial, women have been forbidden from political involvement. Convention be damned. His eyes burned with absolute conviction. "You're my wife, mother to Jian and Rui, and a better business strategist than most court ministers. I trust only you to protect our family and interests. I also trust you to help safeguard the empire itself." He was offering complete faith in my abilities. My eyes filled as emotion overwhelmed speech. I simply nodded with fierce determination. The next day, Prince Han departed in full military regalia through swirling snow, while a second imperial edict stunned the entire bureaucracy. Princess Lin demonstrates wisdom and virtue. During Prince Han's campaign, she shall manage all palace affairs and attend court sessions to advise on imperial matters. Court officials were apoplectic, but I accepted this momentous responsibility while cradling my infant sons. From that moment, I was no longer merely a wife, mother, or even princess. I wielded genuine political authority and entered a sphere traditionally reserved for men alone. Initially, the veteran ministers treated me with barely concealed contempt. But when I proposed 3 solutions for treasury shortfalls and accurately predicted grain price fluctuations that helped prevent famine, skepticism gradually transformed into grudging respect. I applied commercial expertise to military logistics, ensuring Prince Han's forces remained well supplied and funded. I reformed taxation systems and revitalized state revenues, watching the dynasty's finances flourish under competent management. The work was exhausting but incredibly fulfilling. Occasionally, Steward Fu would report on Chen Wei's fate. After his public beating at the academy, his mind had completely shattered. The family sold their remaining assets to secure his release from prison, but he'd become a pitiful street vagrant, wandering the capital in his ruined scholar's robes while mumbling about lost glory and blindness. People treated him as a cautionary joke. Children threw stones. Adults gave him wide berth with expressions of disgust. My former mother-in-law now washed laundry for wealthy families, crying constantly over her spectacular fall from grace. I'd long stopped caring about their miserable circumstances. My life had opened onto magnificent new vistas. 10 years passed like a dream. Prince Han spent 5 years pacifying the northern frontier, completely crushing the barbarian confederacy and expanding our borders by thousands of miles, securing centuries of peace. When he returned triumphant, the capital turned out in massive celebration. During his absence, I'd not only maintained perfect household management but assisted the aging emperor in governing the realm. My political and economic innovations had strengthened the dynasty immeasurably. No one dared question my authority anymore. 3 years after Prince Han's return, the old emperor passed away, naming Prince Han as his successor. He ascended the throne with the era name Enlightenment, while I was crowned Empress and moved into the central palace. On coronation day, Prince Han dismissed all attendants to personally paint my eyebrows. "Mingu, I'm sorry for the burdens you've carried these past years," he murmured, embracing me from behind. Looking at his mature, handsome reflection in the bronze mirror, I shook my head. No regrets. This decade has been the most fulfilling of my life. No scheming rivals, no restrictions on my abilities. I've earned genuine respect through competence and achieved everything I dreamed of. That means more than any luxury. He smiled, resting his chin on my shoulder. I want to offer you unprecedented honor. Will you accept it? Your Majesty, I want you as co-ruler, governing this empire together as equals. I turned in amazement. His expression was completely serious. The ministers will never agree. This is my empire. They'll accept whatever I decree. His tone brooked no argument. We built this together. We should rule it together. Despite fierce opposition, I became the first and only empress in our history to share actual governing authority with the emperor. Together, we ushered in a golden age. I focused on domestic policy, legal reform, economic development, social welfare, while he handled military and foreign affairs. Historians would call it the Enlightenment prosperity. Our sons grew into capable young men. Jian steady and thoughtful, Rui energetic and charismatic. Prince Han often joked that when they came of age, we'd hand over the throne and travel the world together. Sometimes servants would gossip about old scandals. Supposedly, in the capital's worst slums, a mad beggar spent his days rummaging through garbage while muttering about lost scholarly glory. No one remembered his name, just that he'd once been educated. Border garrison reports mentioned a branded laundry woman who'd frozen to death during a blizzard last winter. Her body dumped unceremoniously in an unmarked grave. Such news no longer moved me. My life had grown far beyond those petty concerns. I looked at Prince Han reviewing state documents, and he seemed to sense my attention, glancing up with that warm smile that still made my heart skip. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything golden, while our son's laughter echoed from the gardens. I remembered that terrible afternoon years ago when he'd appeared like an avenging angel, asking, "Marry into my household. I shall shield you from all storms. What say you?" He'd given me so much more than mere protection. He'd offered unlimited skies where I could soar completely free. In the end, the greatest revenge isn't destruction of your enemies. It's building such an extraordinary life that their existence becomes utterly irrelevant. And that, I reflected with deep satisfaction, was precisely what we'd achieved. If you loved this tale of revenge, redemption, and rising from the ashes, don't forget to subscribe to Lotus Tale Studios for more stories that will leave you breathless. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what part made your heart race, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next epic journey. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time, may your own story be written with courage, wisdom, and unwavering strength.